Good morning, class. Welcome to today's lesson in computer application in education. Our topic for today is computer software. The overview of this lesson are 1. We're going to look at open source software. Look at examples of open source software. Advantages of open source software. Disadvantages of open source software. Closed source software. Examples of closed source software. Advantages of closed source software. Disadvantages of closed source software, and differences between closed source and open source software. What is an open source software? Open source software is a software that is distributed with its source code, making it available for use, modification, and distribution with its original rights. It is a software that comes with its source code, and the source codes are the blueprints of the source software. With that, you have the right and authority to do any modification to the software to suit your specification. Examples of open source software. These are examples of open source software. 1. We have Mozilla Firefox. 2. VLC Media Player. 3. VNC, that is Virtual Network Computing. 4. GNU Linux. 5. JIMP. 6. Apache Web Server. 7. LibreOffice. So these are examples of open source software. Advantages of open source software. 1. Open source software is free to use and does not require buying it online. These software are free and available anywhere we want to get them from friends, from people who have them. We can get it from anywhere. 2. Open source software comes with a built-in community that continually modifies and improves the source code. Since the software comes with its source code, it can be modified, it can be improved, and those are done through the source code to suit what the user wants. 3. Open source software provides great learning opportunity for new programmers. The availability of the source code guides new or beginners in programming to know and to learn how softwares are designed. 4. Developers can examine how code works and freely make changes to dysfunctional or problematic aspects of the application to better fit their unique need, therefore making it flexible. Disadvantages of open source software. 1. Open source software can incur unexpected costs in training users, importing data, and setting up required hardware. 2. Open source software can be harder to use and adopt due to difficulty setting it up and the lack of friendly user interfaces. Open source software can pose compatibility issue. And for the last point, open source software can pose liability issues unlike commercial software. And the commercial software here is the closed source software. We'll look at that in our next lesson. Closed source software. Closed source software, also known as proprietary or non-free software, is a software for which the source code is not freely available. It is developed and provided to the user as a fully compiled, executable set of files. For this kind of software, the code and the program, the software, are fully compiled and they are being sold out as one. Unlike the open source software that comes with its source code separate with the program, but with the closed source software, the software comes with the source code fully compiled. Examples of closed source software. 1. Windows. 2. Microsoft Office. 3. Skype. 4. Internet Explorer, and etc. We can see that before we install a window on our computer, it requires a serial key. That means without that serial key, it is difficult to fully get access to the software. Same thing applies to Microsoft Office. Skype and Internet Explorer. Advantages of closed source software. It is user-friendly. 2. Closed source software enables only the provider to have the authority to alter the source code. 3. In closed source software, there is some level of support provided for the user. 4. It gives room for updates. Disadvantages of closed source software. It is expensive to use as it requires acquiring license from developers. There is adaptation by the user as the user cannot alter the source code. There is less reliability as the provider delay in fixing errors. 4. There is a limitation in the number of users of the software as it requires license. 5. Upselling. The differences between open source software and closed source software are: the open source software, the source code is available, but for the closed source software is not released. 2. The software is usually free for open source software, and for the closed source software, you may have to pay for a license to use the software. 3. Anyone can make modifications and contribute to the development of the software. For open source software, for closed source software, all changes are controlled by developers. Thank you for your time. Let's look at some assessment on today's lesson. 1. What is open source software? 2. Give 4 examples of open source software. 3. Explain closed source software and give 2 examples. 4. Give 3 differences between open source software and closed source software. See you next time. Thank you.